when it comes to having empathy for people, I I feel like I can't do that unless I intellectualize it. I need to set up like this kind of like elaborate scenario where I'm that person or whatever, you know. Like I find it hard to feel for someone unless it's like an intellectual pursuit.
Even though I've always been quite sensitive to others in a way, I could be really, really up in my head. So someone could be saying something, about something difficult, and I would just intellectualize it and think, well, you just need to think yourself out of it. I can empathize with people the way they want to be empathized with far better now. So it can be practiced and learned, but obviously to empathize with others, you need to be able to empathize with yourself first. And I think it's important to sort of like tune into yourself several times a day and actually put names on what you're feeling. Because when you want to empathize with others, what you're going to get is a felt sense of how they feel. And that comes in through your own feelings. So if you're not in touch with your own feelings, it's going to be harder to empathize. Another tip, which I find really effective, is paraphrasing what someone has said in your own words in a sentence and adding an emotion to it. So that would sound like, well, it seems like you're really frustrated because X, Y, and Z, or I wonder if you're feeling angry because such and such, or yeah, I get it. I mean, so and so happened and you ended up feeling really guilty about it. The great thing about doing that is, one, it demonstrates to the other person that you're listening and that you've understood them, and people get this kind of drop of relief that comes out of them when they hear someone echoing what their experience is. It's like, oh, someone understands. It's like a weight drops. And secondly, a lot of time people are quite up in their head and they're not connected to their feelings, so it draws a wee string down from their head to their heart, so to speak, when you say that, and it gets them in touch with what they're feeling. They'll be like, yeah, exactly. And it usually encourages people to expand more and unpack it and go a bit deeper, like a layer cake. It's like there's a bunch of thoughts, then some icing, then some thoughts, and then some icing, and the icing in between is like that emotion underlying those thoughts. The other thing that I find is if you get the emotion wrong, it's still usually helpful because it's like a point in a radar that helps them locate where the actual emotion is. So if you say, yeah, it sounds like you were frustrated about that. And they're like, it's not that I was frustrated. I felt more like guilty because da 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 da. Just actually, even if you don't get the emotion right, it usually is still helpful because it helps people use it as a locator on their map to zone in on where they are actually experiencing some difficulty. The hardest time to reflect is obviously when you're in conflict, because then you're suddenly on the defensive. The funny thing is that's kind of the most useful time to do it, because you bring it out of the who's right, who's wrong conversation into the what do you feel, what do I feel, what do you need, what do I need, and can we reach a compromise by saying, I can see you're feeling a bit angry about what I said. That's the hardest time to do it, but it's also the most useful time to do it. And the other thing is, if you do that with someone while you're in a conflict, you try to empathize with them and they still don't become cooperative, then you definitely know that you've done your best. Because I used to always go away from arguments, even when my standard of behavior was a lot better than the other person's standard of behavior, I'd still think I shouldn't have said this, I shouldn't have said that. Of course, we don't have to be perfect, especially not to people who aren't being nice to us. But I know for sure that I've done pretty good. Then there's no kind of I could have done better. So there's a couple of routes. Well, one is exactly that, tuning into yourself more and more. Another one is the fake it till you make it approach, paraphrasing what other people are saying and putting a feeling in it. That helped me a lot, because when I had a lot of experience of trying to identify other people's feelings, my capacity for empathy grew. The more I practiced it, the more naturally it came to me to be able to empathize, especially when I saw how much it helped people. It helped people much more than giving advice. I think the approach that I always try and take, and it's not just for coaches or counselors or therapists, it's actually useful for everyone. which is to not take responsibility for the other person, but to offer a space for the other person to explore what's going on for them. Listen, ask questions, show a lot of curiosity, draw them out, and you'll get some kind of cue from another person when they know that they're ready to receive advice or information or your experience or your views on what they're saying. And that way, instead of trying to strong arm them into doing what you think is right for them, you actually build up a full picture of what's going on for them. So if you do offer them something, you are coming from a place of fully understanding them, and they feel like they're understood by you, so they don't feel like you're interrupting them or taking responsibility for them. They more feel like you've listened to them and want to share your thoughts and experiences. And I find that makes people a lot more likely to take any advice you have to give them, but it's also they're reflecting on what you're saying and integrating it into what they already know, rather than you sort of pouring your copious amount of knowledge into them like you're a jug and they're a cup, and you're sort of seeing them as just a means to an end that you want to put your superior knowledge into. You want to be fully understood and people to know what you want before telling you what's good for you. And I guess one way to tell if people are really curious and what your interests are and to help you, or maybe if they're good at it, is that they actually ask questions and show a lot of curiosity and try to build a full picture before telling you what to do.